And hey, everybody, I am Meteorologist Leslie Hudson. I want to thank you first for stopping by and checking out our live update on Hurricane Dorian. We appreciate it. I've got my phone down in front of me, so if you've got a question, go ahead and ask, or if you want to select city, I'll try and answer it. I'm trying to answer those once we get into a little bit of the meat of this. So if I don't answer it right away, I should be able to get back to it. So it is about 11:45 on Thursday night, just a little bit before Friday. Can you believe it's already almost Friday? This week has all the days have blended together for us. I don't know about you guys, but if you're in the Southeast, it probably has been a really long week too, and you're ready for the weekend. And hopefully, and we should be done with this hurricane sometime late tomorrow, and then we're going to get a much better picture as we get going here. All right, so let's see. What does this say? I don't understand how this thing. Wait, what? I got to look here. Oh, it went away. Oh, well, it said something about the countdown clock, I think. I'm not sure. Anyway, okay, so let's jump into things. Let me show you a live camera first, though. We've got a partnership with Surfline with our ongoing coverage, and this is a live camera over in Nags Head. And you can see off in the distance there some of the waves crashing. Certainly nothing too terrible, but Dorian still well to the south of Nags Head. We're anticipating this to be a little bit more of a problem for Nags Head as we head into the next 24 hours or so. And here's some video. This was we're going to take you into, what is this? I think Charleston, I believe. Charleston or Georgetown? Let's see. It is Charleston. So this was the really worst of their weather was early this morning, of course, when they got a lot of bad weather that came in, and the storm surge was 1 to 3 feet. And you can actually see a really good example of the storm surge in Georgetown. So if you check that out, this was also this morning. There was about a 3 to 6 foot surge in Georgetown earlier this morning. So all of that coming on shore with that wall of water, the big rotation of the wind there helping to push all of that water on shore. And this was shot from our storm chaser, Aaron Jack. And then our last clip is also over in, let's see, where is that? Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And again, we saw some really rough conditions at the beaches, much worse now. Myrtle Beach has had a lot of bad weather today, and so has South Carolina. There's also been a lot of tornadoes in North Carolina earlier today. So we've got a video here that I'm going to show you. This was actually taken from someone from using their phone, and this was in Emerald Isle, North Carolina this morning. What happened was, as this tornado came in off the water, and we've got pictures here also from the National Weather Service. They were out there from the Moore's Head office surveying the damage. Look at that complete destruction, you guys. A lot of damage in this mobile home park. Now, there was not any reports of injuries that I've heard about, but there's definitely been a lot of damage, and I'd be interested to see what the National Weather Service officially calls this as in terms of the damage. And then we've got this great video that we got from Surfline. Look at this. So they actually captured the water spout, and we've put a red circle around that water spout. You see at the end of the pier, that red circle, that's the actual water spout that formed off of Bogue Pier this morning and then moved right over Emerald Isle as a severe it was a severe water spout, and then moved onshore as a tornado. Really, really scary. And there was, again, as I mentioned, extensive damage done to that mobile home. And of course, the crews will be out there surveying that. And there's about 6 tornadoes in North Carolina. We've had warnings all day. There is tornado watches through the overnight in North Carolina. And we also have flash flood watches, which is also another big problem. It's not so much that Dorian has been dumping a ton of rain. It's the two things. The storm surge has come in, and we're getting some of these intense bands. And oh, look, I see a tornado warning. So let's go zoom up in here real quick. So let's see what we got going on over here. And this is right along State Road 17 in North Carolina. And this is a newly issued tornado warning. Matt, if you want to take that full, I'm going to go ahead and read from the National Weather Service. So this was issued about 11:32 tonight. Tornado warning for, for southwestern Quinmans, I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I'm mispronouncing that. Northeastern North Carolina, that I can tell you, and southern Chowan County in northeastern North Carolina. So that's until midnight tonight with this particular tornado warning. And as of 11:32, the storm that was possibly producing a tornado was near Snug Harbor, and it was moving southeast at around 35 miles an hour. I'm sorry, moving north. It was moving west at 35 miles an hour. It's 8 miles southeast of Hertford. And of course, the concern is what is with us. So look at that. That warning's already been dropped. I don't know if they just literally dropped it. Hang on one sec. Let me look. Looks like they may have actually even dropped that, but let's go ahead. I'm going to switch this over to the velocity mode and see if we see anything in there. So I'm going to go back up here, and I was looking. So the velocity mode is looking for rotation inside thunderstorms, and I don't see any particularly at this moment, but it's certainly the problem is what I was telling people on Facebook is when you get these hurricanes that are rotating so quickly, the actual hurricane itself is this large rotating vortex, and then on top of that, we've got these bands that rotate around from the center. Let me pull this out because you could see that. Yep, there's the eye. There's the eye right there, by the way. See how it's all clear right there? Still have there's nothing going on right here. A little bit of, there might be some cloud deck right here, or that just might be the actual radar product and Moorhead not picking it up. But so these storms rotate so quickly when they come on shore that oftentimes the radar confuses that for rotation in the atmosphere. So I haven't seen any tornadoes verified tonight. I've seen a couple of warnings, but there's been over a half a dozen of tornadoes reported in North Carolina. And we talked about that one of the most dangerous scenarios with a landfalling hurricane is that northeastern side where we can get those tornadoes, which again has been right in here. These bands coming in and rotating over North Carolina, even into parts of Virginia as well. We haven't seen any up there either, but I wouldn't be ruling that out either. I think Virginia could be under fire with some severe weather as well. Someone was asking me on Facebook, how is South Carolina doing? Much, much, much better. Myrtle Beach got hammered today with a lot of bad weather, wind and rain. That's going to continue to prove through tonight. And then, of course, it's all North Carolina's game tonight and tomorrow. And then where do we get where and if do we get a landfall? So let me talk about that for a second, because the actual path would take, Dorian, wait for this to stop and then I'll grab it, is generally right in this area. Here we go. So if this verified, and again, we're talking small nuances in the forecast. If this changed just a bit, we would see the eye not make it on land. But if this path holds, which again, the National Hurricane Center is still officially calling for what could be a landfall tomorrow morning around sunrise, and it would be really near Moorhead City, or Cape Lookout would be the other city that we could kind of peg this on. And that would happen probably between 7 and 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and then making a secondary landfall potentially near Cape Hatteras early in the afternoon, somewhere between noon and 2 p.m. tomorrow. We could be looking at a secondary landfall before it gets out of here and it gets picked up by the mid-latitude trough and just really accelerates it quickly. So we'll see if that verifies. I know a lot of people want to see if there's going to be an official landfall. We just aren't going to know that until tomorrow morning, until the National Weather Service makes the call or the National Hurricane Center says, yep, the eye has moved over land. And then we would get an official call of a landfall. And that should, again, be early in the morning. But the hazards that you're dealing with in North Carolina do not change whether this makes landfall or not. There is a core wind field of 100 miles an hour, and that would be directly impacting Moorhead City, maybe Cape Lookout, and then up into the Nags Head area and into Hatteras if it actually made landfall. But in terms of these other hazards, storm surge, the wind and the rain, for the bulk, by part and parcel, really is going to be the same whether you get this landfall or not. So I want you to remember, it's not so much whether it makes landfall, it's that this is a dangerous situation, and it's going to stay dangerous at least through tomorrow. All right, let me pull this out real quick because I had some people ask me on Facebook about the tropical storm warning. So I'll show the graphic in just a second, but let me just show you here. Look at this. From New York up through Boston, tropical storm warning, and we have a tropical storm watch for this little notch up here in Maine. Unbelievable stuff. I don't think the National Weather Service, or the National Hurricane Center rather, will likely issue any more warnings or tropical storm warnings at this moment, but it is possible that we could see some tropical storms strength. Someone's asking about Jacksonville. I don't know if you're asking about Jacksonville, North Carolina, or Jacksonville, Florida. I am going to show you the live, the wind gusts right here. Actually, I've got them right here. So, but in fact, that we're going to be talking about millions of people on Saturday that we're likely not anticipating to have to deal with a tropical, or it still would be a hurricane, would have to be dealing with tropical storm force winds. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of unhappy people up in the Northeast. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but there's definitely the possibility, and the warnings are in place to let people get ready. And I got to stop this because that's going to scoot along. So here are the live wind gusts in South Carolina. Myrtle Beach is looking at 40-mile-per-hour winds, 41 in North Myrtle Beach, 30 over in Marion, and most of the South Carolina area is in the 20 to 25 mile per hour range. And then up the road as we get into North Carolina, I've got more cities toggled on because, of course, this is where most of the bad weather is right now. So we're looking at a 53 mile per hour wind in Wilmington. It's been like that for at least 2 hours. They've had winds right in the 50 mile per hour range because of all the cities right now over the Carolinas. That western eye wall is closest to Wilmington. So that's why the winds are the highest there. Then up ahead of it, we've got 40 to 35 and change miles per hour. On the Barrier Islands, though, we've got 49 in Hatteras. So there's a good mixture here between 30, 40 miles an hour. Some of those, again, as high as 50. There was a report of, I think, around a 56 mile per hour wind at Frying Pan. That's just off the coast of North Carolina. That was within, I think that was reported at 10 tonight. So there definitely an increase in uptick in winds. We've seen more of that in North Carolina than we have anywhere that Dorian has touched in these last 4 to 5 days. And the hurricane warnings and the tropical storm warnings, as I mentioned, were upgraded just a bit, or were modified, I should say, not upgraded. We saw actually some of the hurricane warnings drop for parts of North Carolina, and looks like everything in Georgia is in the clear. And then, of course, our tropical storm warnings up into the Delaware, Maryland, the Chesapeake Bay area, and then up into Virginia. And then there's our other 2 spots right there. And actually, for some reason, that tropical storm watch isn't showing up, but I showed it to you. That's just off the coast of Maine. And also new, I forgot to tell you this, also new at 11, the Canadian government has issued a hurricane watch for parts of Canada, because there's a concern that just enough of those winds are going to get close enough that they might gust up to hurricane force. So all that is yet to unfold by Saturday. But again, really, really picking up speed. You'll see it here. 100 mile per hour winds right now. So that's down just a bit from 5 o'clock. Northeast winds are moving in northeast at 13. So that's also a little faster than it was earlier tonight. So all that's good news in terms of getting this thing out of here quicker and sooner than later. And then the official path, as I mentioned, I don't like to focus on our red line, but we'll show it for this example. We're still talking about the margin of error anywhere over here where we could be seeing a landfall. If it moved more this way, it would have, let's see, how did the eye go over the buoys and only have 70 mile per hour gusts? They'll never understand. Okay, let me get back to that thought in a second. So there's still the possibility that we could have, again, this brief landfall before it moves off. It's not expected to make a landfall on the U.S. mainland. So the question was, how can we have 70 mile per hour gusts? Because this hurricane itself, the structure of the hurricane is becoming less defined. So there's only a small area contained around the northeastern eye wall. Actually, it's on the western eye wall right now, but that contains those 100 mile per hour winds. So remember, when you get away from the center of circulation, the winds decrease exponentially, especially when you're getting 70, 80 miles away from the center of circulation. So it's very easy for there to be a 70 mile per hour gust off the coast, but we're still talking about on the west side of a hurricane, the winds around 40 to 50 miles an hour, even though it's just about 20 miles away from land. It's much closer to land in North Carolina than it's ever been since it moved to the closer to the U.S., but still, because the structure of the hurricane continues to get compromised as it interacts with land, we continue to see those winds become less of an issue, but still an issue nonetheless, for sure, you guys, that we've got to be dealing with and still be using some caution here. So here's another vantage point of the radar, and this particular band, and it's, yeah, I really got, whoops, I grabbed the wrong thing. This particular feeder band has been really, really has had some violent winds in it. I was looking at it earlier. I saw some rotation in these earlier, so we could still get some bad weather, rough weather, severe weather tonight as this feeder band rotates on shore. So be careful in these barrier islands, also southern Virginia, northern North Carolina. Really got to watch out for that band as it rotates on shore. Here's a look at the storm watches. Most of those have been dropped, except for, it's obviously up for all of North Carolina and a little bit of southern Virginia. And that storm surge expected on the neighborhood of probably 4 to 6 feet. Some estimates were as high as 8 feet. The official forecast was as high as 8 feet yesterday. Here's a look at that as we put the numbers on. So remember, the storm surge is a wall of water that gets pushed ahead of a hurricane. So it's literally the Atlantic Ocean getting pushed onto land. And it's when the land and the ocean become one. And it's already been ongoing across Georgia. That was really an issue yesterday. So I'm going to actually scoot up the road here and let's take a look through South Carolina. 1 1 to 3 feet. They've already had their surge as well. You still have some surge there. That should start to get better as we get into tomorrow. And then North Carolina is still dealing with a very dangerous surge. Georgetown, 6 feet. I believe it. It's probably was closer to 4 to 5. I don't have the official numbers. We won't have those for a couple of days. But just based on the video I've seen, I definitely have been having a surge in that neighborhood. Around 4 to 5 feet, and then up into Wilmington, also up to 6 feet possible, and over by Morehead City and over by the Barrier Islands, again, 1 to 3 feet possible as well. Let me pull this out just real quick, and we'll go up into Virginia, and the same thing here. So in terms of the surge, we've had most of that already come in, but we will have some instances where we'll see a little more of that surge, especially if you're north of the I. So if you're in northern North Carolina, in Virginia, you're still going to, or even in the Chesapeake Bay area, I'm still anticipating that surge to be a factor for you well into tomorrow. Here's a look at our 4-kilometer RPM model. It's a high resolution model. And let me show you, let me back it up here. So this is was starting at midnight. And then as it rotates again, just off the coast of the U.S., this particular model kind of wants to make a landfall just like the National Hurricane Center does. So this is really close to making a landfall in this scenario, and then picking up that forward speed and getting really out of the way before that. So this is a high resolution, so it only goes a couple of days out. So I don't have the data that goes up into the Northeast by Sunday, but you can at least get a feel for what we will be dealing with. So a lot of people have been talking about the rain. How much rain are we going to get? What's the deal? Some of the models and the rain, the guidance, this is GFS. This is based between now and Friday. So another couple of inches. I do think that one's particularly not accurate either. On average, most people are going to get 4 to 5 inches of rain along the immediate coastline of North Carolina. And some pockets and some estimates, according to the National Hurricane Center, could be as high as 8 inches, especially near Nags Head and north and west, where you're in that little notch right in here. We could see up to 8 to 10 inches, and even back here there's a little slot of it too. So in terms of losing power, again, the threat is obviously much higher in North Carolina. We've already seen that. We expect the highest risk to be right again on that Barrier Island, and the Barrier Islands right in here. And we'll see how we've already had power outages, but we're at a high risk for that area, primarily because the eye itself is expected to get closest to you, and that's why we could see that. All right, one more model that I'm going to show you. This is the wind product. So this is again starting right now, and the Wilmington area is this particular model was indicating a 71 mile per hour gust. That is not the case. The winds are actually around 53. So this model's overdone. Not perfect, you guys. Remember, this is just guidance, but this 43 mile per hour wind in Jacksonville is pretty close, and so is Nags Head. So take this with a grain of salt. It's just a guidance, but it does show as we get closer to the pre-dawn hours, or actually by the afternoon, look at that. Nags Head could have 91 mile per hour wind, and Norfolk about 55. So we're definitely talking about some tropical storm force winds up in Virginia, and possibly, again, Category 1 winds over the Barrier Islands. And then Baltimore, I put that on there just so you could get a quick feel. That would be in the range of 20 to 30 miles an hour. Okay, let me put the radar back on, and then I think we're going to sign off for the night. A couple of you still hanging with me. That's great. I appreciate it. So I feel like I'm talking just to Matt over there. but Matt likes it, right, Matt? All right, here's a look again. One more look at the western wall, you guys. That's the winds with the 100 mile per hour sustained winds in them. And then we've got our center of circulation right here. And then here is that one big band that I'm concerned about from Hatteras to Portsmouth over into Washington, Nags Head as well. We've got some really, really heavy rain and wind in this particular one. Flash flood watch, of course, will be our concern as we head through the overnight as well. And thankfully, I don't see any severe or tornado warnings up for any parts of the Carolinas or anywhere across the mid-Atlantic right now. Okay, that's going to do it, you guys. It's about 12:03. Thanks for hanging out and waiting. And again, if I don't, I'd say someone's saying hi. Hello. I can't see I can see the chat. Okay, let me look here real quick and see if I missed something. I answered that one. So it's not a tropical storm. It's definitely a hurricane. I would not call the hurricane a joke. No hurricane is a joke, but I know people are sick of it. I was saying the hurricane is close to us here in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Oh, you've got maybe 15 knots. Yeah, I just kind of talked about that. So even though it's so close to land, that there is that the winds are just not that high. So now I see it. So Dan was asking again, the hurricane is so close and maybe they have 10 or 15 mile per hour winds in Jacksonville. That's because that core wind field is just far enough offshore, Dan. And it's, again, this is not a typical classic looking hurricane. So it's a really small wind field that has those really dangerous winds, but they definitely have those winds anywhere from 40 to 50. We've seen them. In fact, Jacksonville, I showed you guys, you had about a 40 mile per hour wind. But, I don't know, you guys. Some people are saying they're disappointed. We're exhausted with Dorian. I know. Oh, my gosh. I know, Dan. I feel so sorry for folks that have been watching this thing for over 10 days. All of us have, of course. And here we're still dealing with this crazy hurricane. You're just about done. By tomorrow night, you guys will be getting much, much better weather in the Carolinas, and it'll be a much better scenario. All right. So I got all that in. Thanks for hanging with me, you guys. 12:05 now, and we'll be back tomorrow morning continuing our coverage. And I'm trying to think of, we got to show you the social media handles. So I got to make the boss happy. Check these out. Besides Twitter and Periscope, you can find us on Facebook at My Radar, also My Radar WX on Twitter where we are now, Instagram at My Radar, and we have a lot of really cool pictures on our Instagram page. Not necessarily Dorian related, but really cool stuff. And make sure you go check out our YouTube channel. We're trying to grow that out, you guys. Okay, love for you to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. That'll do it, you guys. Have a fantastic Friday. Woo! It is almost the weekend. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Continuing hurricane coverage on My Radar.